you're gonna look great.
But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the
Gymwits.
That's right, man. Tell 'em. Welcome to the Gymwits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And I'm Tony Marinucci, a.k.a. Tips with Tony.
So I'm pretty sore. Right, I've been doing a lot of fairly heavy lifts, deadlifts, squats, good heavy benches and stuff like that. So I've been going pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Are you giving yourself...
That was it? That's all you wanted to say?
Just thought I'd mention that.
I thought there was a question. Yeah.
I've been trying to use this stick.
Oh, the stick. The infamous stick.
You guys know the stick?
I do foam rolling.
Yeah.
I gotta get into that. So I'm definitely I've been using the stick.
But how do you use the stick? I guess you could.
It's the same.
But foam rolling, I feel like you can get a lot more different.
Yeah,
areas.
it depends on the muscle. Typically, you would want somebody to you can use the stick, but you'd almost rather have somebody use it on you.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, it kind of accomplishes. It has the same idea basically as foam rolling or massage.
I hate foam rolling.
Yeah, it's not.
I just put a post about it, and my face is just so excruciating. I'm trying to smile through it, and everyone's like, "That's exactly what my face looks like." I'm okay. At least I'm not alone.
Yeah.
This hurts, but it feels good, but it hurts.
Yeah, no, it can be rough.
So we have a really cool interview coming up, and it's so funny. I don't know why I thought this, but the very last thing that I asked was just about bodybuilding because our guest is into physique athletes, and he actually has competed himself. And it was so funny that how Ryan, who has been into working out his whole life, is probably so clueless and knows almost nothing, and I know next to nothing about bodybuilding.
Yeah,
right? we used to a little bit more, but it's so, isn't that just funny how you could be a fitness pro for well over a decade and know almost nothing about bodybuilding? Well,
you're drawing a kind of a false parallel that bodybuilding equals fitness. I mean, granted,
but you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, but I think this would have been true like 10, 15 years ago when we were, 20 years ago when we were just finishing up with high school.
I figured it out. We have now been working out for 20 years.
Maybe a little longer.
A little bit longer.
Yeah.
I just that occurred to me the other day.
So 20 years ago,
golf and fitness when we were 16.
20 years ago, we would have, I think bodybuilding was more closely linked and coupled with fitness, but now I think you don't see it nearly as much. I think there are, it still has its niche, but I think you see it much more connected with performance, much more connected with even things like CrossFit, and more connected with even like you look at the ideal body, you think of physique competitors or fitness body, even though that's not necessarily the ideal body. You're looking at that. You're looking at athletes. You see athletes on the cover of a lot of men's fitness and men's health. You see celebrities on the cover of that stuff. So I think that as a society, we maybe moved away from the aesthetic of the bodybuilder being the ideal. I think in two ways they've kind of moved away from each other. I think we've become more realistic about what the ideal body would look. But also, as you mentioned, when we talk, the bodybuilding ideal has gone from Schwarzenegger, which is probably still I think the best physique, to basically the Incredible Hulk, and so.
Although in the 70s, Schwarzenegger beat out Lou Ferrigno, who was the Incredible Hulk.
Yes, you're right. Famously in Pumping Iron, he just got in his head. So, but yeah, I guess without further ado, one thing I'll say right off the bat, we were talking about this earlier. A lot of the discussions about reverse dieting, and for some reason in my head, I had reverse anorexia. So the whole time we're planning the episode, I'm thinking of reverse dieting, meaning like the situation where men just, or men or women who just want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I had prepared with that in mind, and I was completely wrong. Reverse dieting is not that. It was actually really, really fun, interesting, and enlightening conversation. So
hold on. Because he's Tony's coach. Let's have our Tony introduce our guest for today.
Without further ado, this is Tony Stephan, registered dietitian, business entrepreneur. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, we are here with Tony Stephan. What's going on, Tony?
What is going on, friends? How are you guys doing?
Very well. So Tony is an entrepreneur and a registered dietitian, and we thank you very much for coming on the Gymwits. We have a very interesting discussion for today, but as always, first...
Well, I was just going to say, not to be confused with Tony Marinucci, the other registered dietitian that is also on the podcast right now.
Tony with an I. Tony's actually
The other Tony.
Tony's actually my nutrition coach and my business coach. He's
nice.
Absolutely fabulous.
Well, I guess before we get to the first question, it's like, how do you guys know each other?
That's how we know each other.
Okay.
Yep.
He's helped me
That is how we know each other.
tremendously, both with my physique and also my online counseling business. So he's been
nice.
Absolute pleasure to have as someone to guide me and lead me. So he really has a lot of knowledge. I'm really excited for you guys to hear what he has to say.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that. That truly means a lot.
It's true.
So I guess the first question, so we always, every guest, we kind of want to, since we're a fitness nutrition podcast, we want to know kind of a little bit about your own fitness background. So whether, you played sports professionally, or you grew up playing cricket, or, you just, work fitness enthusiast, or you do nothing. Like, what's your own kind of fitness background, and, what you did growing up and what you currently do?
Totally. Yeah. So for me, it was an interesting thing growing up. I faced some adversity early on in life. So my mother left home at a very young age. My father and I had some financial adversities and struggles. So for me, I was an angry kid, and my dad had an old weight set in the basement of our home, and he taught me weightlifting as a tool to let out aggression and just a positive outlet for the emotions that I was feeling, the challenges I was facing. So I fell in love with the process. Everything from the clack of the dumbbells, the old school dumbbells that you screwed on, to just the feeling you had of having control over your body, your health and fitness, and being able to create that positive impact. So I fell in love with it, and I wanted to use that love and that passion to teach others who were also struggling in their life with, challenges, feeling uncomfortable in their own skin, lacking confidence, whatever it may be. And teaching them to use health and fitness as a tool to overcome that. So at the age of 18, I became a personal trainer. I was paid a whopping $6 per session to start personal training, but I gained the invaluable experience of working with clients and coaching, and just learning the human-to-human connection that comes along with coaching in the health and fitness industry. So I did that. At age 23, I became a registered dietitian. So I graduated with a degree in dietetics. My goal was, if I was a registered dietitian and a personal trainer, I was kind of like a dual threat quarterback, right? I could throw and I could run. So I always thought that it would help me market myself. And to me, my big goal was always to own my own business. I always thought I was going to own a personal training boot camp studio and then do nutrition services and hire trainers. So I started working at a big box gym as a registered dietitian and trainer. I did really well. I got promoted a couple of times, and then I just, I lacked fulfillment there. So I launched and created my own online coaching business. I've been doing that ever since. I did that about 26. I'm 28 now. My own health and fitness journey. I love to walk the walk and lead from the front by, just practicing overall health. I've competed in a few men's physique shows. I took first place in my last one, so I was very happy with that. I'm semi-retired right now. I make the joke with my wife, just because dieting, is a little bit different and more challenging now that I'm married, because my wife cooks very good Italian food, but potentially would do in the future. But yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell there.
Well, so I have a question, because Ryan and I got into weight training when we were around 15 or 16. Did you know at the time when you started that so much research, there's so much research into it, and so much evidence would come out about how good it is for you, and especially as you get older, and the health benefits and the mental health benefits? Because I know when Ryan and I started, we were like, oh, we want to get big, we want to get muscular. We probably didn't think, oh, this was going to be so good for our health, but it turns out, hey, it was. Did you know that at the time?
No, not at all. Like I said, for me, weightlifting was kind of like an outlet for, the emotions and the things I was feeling at the time. And for me, man, I'll be transparent. I just wanted to look like an Abercrombie model. That was it. So I didn't really care about the positive health implications. If I just had a 6-pack of abs and, would look good on a beach, that's all I cared about. So
how often does that happen where you do something for your physical appearance or something cosmetic and it winds up really being good for you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, and that's what's the cool thing too, is, throughout the 10 years I've coached clients, a lot of times, obviously it's the aesthetic changes that they want to see. But what they come out on the end and realize is it changes their mentality on life. I've had so many clients like make a physical transformation and then go make a career transformation, like quit a job that they didn't like and go start a business, or like I had a woman one time who's in an emotionally abusive relationship. She used strength training to literally strengthen her mind and leave that abusive relationship and finally like break free from that and, go on to bigger and better things. So those are just two small stories that I've had and seen countless others. It starts aesthetically and then it transforms other areas of their life. So
I have an interesting question as a dietitian and kind of physique competitor. Justin and I both kind of competed in martial arts that required weight cutting, and I'm assuming there's a good deal of weight cutting that goes on with physique competitions too. Is there a way to do it where you're eating healthy on the weight cutting part, or do you just kind of have to accept that, this isn't going to be the healthiest thing in the world, but it's kind of means to an end and, kind of risk reward. And that's just, it's what I got to do to compete.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's a combination of both, right? So, if you do it properly, you can mitigate a lot of the negative implications and side effects. No matter what, when you do a physique competition, a bikini competition, whatever, you are taking your body to a physiological level of body fat that's not designed to be at. I mean, for men, we're talking competitively like 5%, 4% body fat for physique. Women, like 14, 15, 16%. So the human body is not designed to be there long term. But as you mentioned, it's a means to an end. It's a transient thing. You're going to step on stage, and then if you work with a good coach, you work with a good professional, and you have a plan to, work away from that very strong calorie deficit after the event or the plan ends, then it's not nearly as bad as it could be. Now, the people who get in trouble are the people who like crash diet. They, diet for a very short period of time. They try to lose weight very rapidly. Then after these shows, they just go on these all-out benders and consume a ton of food, consume alcohol, and they don't have a plan to recover their metabolisms. Those are the people that get in trouble. Those are the people who experience rebound adiposity, gain a lot of weight back very quickly, and also the emotional side effects of you were on a stage on Saturday and then, 2 weeks later, you're up 10 pounds. The emotional implications that come along with it. So yeah, to answer your question, definitely you do go through some mental stressors, you go through some physiological stressors. Your body definitely does start to fight back a little bit, but if you do it properly, you take your time. I mean, really a contest prep should be 16 to 20 weeks. And then the recovery phase afterwards, I mean, the rule of thumb is for as long as you diet is as long as you should be recovering as well. So if you go through all that, it's actually a very healthy process because at the end of the day, it's a challenge and it's an adversity in life that, strengthens you and helps you grow and become, better in other areas of life as well.
So yeah, actually, so I guess staying on this for another. I know we had a different topic we wanted to go into, but which this may kind of overlap slightly as well. But I guess what are the kind of metabolic changes and effects that are going when you are kind of cutting down to a certain level and then trying to build back up? So Kenny, you mentioned if you do it wrong, how it can affect you. But yeah, if you can go a little bit more into like what are the effects on the metabolism for somebody doing that kind of a weight cut, and then if you're doing it right, how doing it right can help you rebound better than doing it wrong.
Totally. Yeah. So the human body is very resilient and adaptive. And like I mentioned earlier, the human body is built for survival. Like the human body is designed to store endless amounts of adipose tissue. So when you start to achieve these very esoteric and very low levels of body fat, your body starts to fight back in terms of metabolic adaptation. So again, going back to the survival principle, the body hates change. It loves homeostasis. So when you start to get very lean, so for men, you're starting to get 6%, 5%, even 4% body fat, your body will start to resist the change by slowing down its basal metabolism. So basal metabolism is your metabolism if you were just to breathe all day. So if you were to lay in a bed and breathe all day, the calories expended for all the cellular processes that are going on, that starts to slow a little bit because your body realizes it's expending that vital currency. Like your body needs a certain level of adipose tissue, of body fat. So when it starts to expend that, it goes, holy smokes, I need to slow things down. I need to prevent this change because like this person, Tony, or whoever, is starving in the wilderness. So I need to slow this down. So it's actually a good thing because if you really were starving in the wilderness, you wouldn't want your body to say, oh, you want to look good on the beach, so let me speed up fat burning. No, your body doesn't care about that. So number one is basal metabolism. Number two is things like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So NEAT. So like the amount of calories you expend like chewing or talking or thinking, that will start to decrease. There's even proof that your thyroid hormone, so the regulator of your metabolism, the driver of your metabolism, starts to decrease. Definitely you start to notice a decrease in sex hormone production. And that can be tied to a couple different things, but definitely losing some of that vital adipose tissue. So like testosterone production goes down. I know firsthand when I get into the nitty gritty of contest prep the last few weeks, like my sex drive is plummeted. Your energy, your overall cognitive performance, you're on lower calories. So your ability to focus and think and all that. And then definitely those types of things together would be termed like metabolic adaptation. So when you go through a contest prep and then you step on stage and you walk away from that, like I said, the wrong thing to do would be just, oh, cool, diet's over. Let me just, I was eating, let's call it 1,600 calories per day. Well, I'm going to go binge on 3,000 calories per day for the next week or so. You don't want to do that because since your metabolism is so compromised, it has essentially slowed to adapt to the changes that were going on. Your body was resisting. If you just started consuming this very high amount of calories, you can gain body fat very, very rapidly. So the proper thing to do is what's called reverse dieting. And reverse dieting is when you slowly and incrementally increase calories, you slowly gain some body fat. So we're talking very lean individuals here. You slowly start to gain some body fat back, which is healthy, like we said, for hormone production, all that good stuff. And you have a plan to slowly increase over time and get those calorie levels back up, get your energy levels back up, get your sex hormone production back up. And if you do that process properly, the research has proven that those negative implications that come with doing a conscious prep, they're transient. They are reversed when you do that recovery process properly.
So now, with reverse dieting, is this something that is also used for people who are, who are the layperson or someone who's overweight? Like, is this also something that would work with those kind of populations as well?
So this is definitely now kind of getting a little bit more anecdotal. There's definitely research that's proven that when you are on a low calorie diet, like I said, that process occurs to where your metabolism will slow. So what we've seen in the real world application is, we get some of these clients who would come in and have done multiple rounds or even multiple years of crash dieting. So losing a ton of weight by going on an 800 and 1,000 or 1,200 calorie diet, losing a ton of weight and then gaining it back very rapidly because it's not a sustainable approach. So what we've seen is that years and years of doing that can still leave your body with some negative metabolic adaptations there. So like, your metabolism slows, your body starts fighting against change. So yes, I have had women, just general, women or even men come in who've never done a conscious prep, but have taken their body through the stressors of repeated cycles of low calorie dieting, weight gain, low calorie dieting, and usually low calorie dieting in combination of excessive exercise. And that's another metabolic adaptation is high cortisol levels, high stress hormone levels, who don't have the ability to lose weight, even if they eat a low calorie diet. So they go back on the diet again that maybe worked for them in the past, like the past year or two ago, they can't lose weight. And they're like scratching their head is like, to why? Like, why? This worked before, I gained weight after, but this worked before. Why isn't this working? Well, because your metabolism has shifted. So yeah, we have seen positive results with taking an active person who has caused some impact on their metabolism by low calorie dieting and gaining the weight back by actually taking them through a reverse, building up their calories, helping their body burn fat again, and then helping them diet again in the future. Again, not as strongly supported in the research, but I think over time we're going to start to see more and more studies come out and more positivity, because we know it from a real world application point. It's just the like conclusive scientific evidence hasn't caught up with it just yet.
Yeah. Well, I just want to note, because a lot of the studies that I've read are really done on the people who are like starving themselves, or like it's not really done on the everyday person. But I agree with Tony, and I've seen it myself with my clients as well. It's like it's happening just because their body fat percentage isn't at a certain number. They still are manipulating the metabolism, and I feel like eventually the science will catch up.
So I guess I have an interesting question, because we all know how kind of the nutrition and fitness industry will take something that maybe it works for one population, or maybe there's some, preliminary research that's showing one thing, and they'll kind of run with it. So is there a fear that, we all know that, extreme diets generally don't work, and that most people are going to rebound from an extreme diet, and maintenance becomes an issue, and that rebound is a challenge, but that by kind of introducing so the big question is with anyone on an extreme diet is what happens once you reach your goal weight. Like when you go back to normal, you're going to gain it back. So is there a fear that people will use extreme dieting, reverse dieting almost as a way to say, okay, well, once you do this extreme diet, then you make this crazy weight, and then you'll just use reverse dieting to get yourself back to the normal level. So it almost kind of using that as a way to kind of still promote or push the extreme diet, which still will kind of potentially have those negative effects.
Oh, I could totally see that.
That's a great question, Ryan.
Yeah, it's a great question. I could totally see that as the next diet fad. Be like, oh, we have plant two-phase.
I'm seeing some dollar signs right now.
There you go.
Like you could just see it now. Someone jumping on this and like, see, the problem with diets is that when you cut off of it, you can't do it. So now we have a two-phase diet plan, and so they're using this concept, which could be very helpful to people that need it, as a selling point, is trying to sell the same crash diets that people have been trying to sell for years.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I can just speak from like the psychology standpoint. To take someone through a reverse diet, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of trusting the process. It takes a certain type of person to wrap their mind around that. It takes someone to kind of admit that what they've done in the past has not worked for them, and that the crash dieting has really caused them to be in a very challenging situation. So I don't ever see it as being like, oh, I will go on a crash diet, I will diet hard for 6 weeks and then just enter a reverse diet, because I think the messaging is attracting two different types of people. The people who are going for the crash diets, with all due respect, they're looking for a shortcut. They're looking for an easy fix. They're looking for the quick way out. Someone who's going to implement a reverse diet has to almost admit that that thinking, that linear thought process in the past has got them into trouble, and now they need to do away with it and almost create a new mindset and then enter that process. So I don't think so. And
also, too, like reverse dieting, it's not like a one-size-fits-all. Mm-hmm. It's not something that it takes you, like Tony, maybe you should explain to them the steps in which, like, what a reverse diet, what would that really look like for someone? Because I think they're thinking of it as like a one thing that you do, but it's really not. It's a process.
Sure. Yeah, correct. So, it totally depends on the individual and like where they're starting. But like, so again, let's say if like a physique athlete dieted down, did a contest prep, and then they ended up at 1,400 calories per day. So you would want to slowly and systematically increase calories over time to help them regulate their metabolism. So, we're talking anywhere from like, at first I usually make an aggressive jump. It again depends on the athlete, depends how they feel, depends on their symptoms and all that. But usually make an aggressive jump at first, maybe like 20% of total calories just to get them feeling normal again. But then we're talking about like 15 grams of carbs per week, right? Or maybe every 2 weeks. So again, it's kind of a drawn out systematic process. And there's no like textbook answer to how slow do you go, how much carbohydrates and fats do you add in. But I found like 15 grams of carbs and usually about 1 to 2 grams of fat every week or every 10 to 14 days works well, to where you're not increasing body weight at a rate that is unacceptable for the client. So we're talking, it totally depends again how long the person is dieted for, but this is like a several month process. Mm-hmm. So I don't think someone again who is in the mindset of I'm going to diet for 6 weeks would be able to commit to that type of recovery.
I think we were just concerned that that people might be sold something like that. That there are certainly unscrupulous companies out there that will jump on any fad in order to sell whatever their product is.
Totally. Yeah. I like I said, hey, I'm not surprised by anything these days. If I see the reverse diet, 6-week plan, I'd be shocked, but nothing surprises me these days.
So, I know you started to touch on, I guess you would call them the macros that you were.
I was just going to segue into that. So
that you would introduce back. So you said that introducing the carbs back slowly, fat back.
Yep.
Are there? And once again, granted that it's very individual, are there certain foods or maybe even supplements, vitamins, anything that you recommend taking while someone is reverse dieting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's usually always the carbohydrates and fats because those are the macronutrients that are most stimulatory to the metabolism. And anyone who's very active, and especially someone who did a contest prep, they don't have an issue hitting protein. So you usually just leave protein where it is. As carbs start to really increase, I actually bring protein down a little bit because you definitely don't need as much when carbohydrates are in abundance because they're protein-sparing nutrients. So certain types of foods, as you start to build up, you really can start to liberalize someone's intake. So if someone's eating 100 grams of carbs per day, they're probably eating mostly like vegetables and non-starchy carbohydrates because those are the most voluminous type foods with the lowest amount of calories. So it's cool to start to liberalize that and start to incorporate whole grains, even things like whole grain breads, maybe some whole grain pasta, potatoes, rice, all those good things, quinoa. As far as supplements go, I'm a pretty standard recommendation guy. Unless my clients' symptoms or goals recommend otherwise. Just a multivitamin, a whey protein if someone needs help augmenting their intake, and then a fish oil and a vitamin D if you're in a cold weather climate and don't get sunlight exposure. Besides that, though, I don't really branch too much out of that. Supplements is like the top of the pyramid, right? So you have to dial in your training, your recovery, your sleep, your stress, mitigation, your nutrition, your, nutritional quality and quantity. If you dial in all those, then we can talk about supplements. But most people and this could be a whole another podcast or topic, most people just want to go for supplements first. It's like, really, that's just the cherry on top. You got to make your Sunday first,
Absolutely.
Right? No pun intended.
Perfect. So I guess because one thing that you do talk about a lot, he's very active on Instagram, and I know you talk about macros and not a lot. Is there like a standard formula for people that you use for like recommending for macronutrients, or is it kind of just like very individualized? I feel like people want me to ask you, but I know the answer. But I'm going to ask you anyway.
You do know the answer, and it's so funny because when I used to always get students as a dietitian, and they'd always want to know, how do you set macros? How do you do it? How do you do it? And it's like, for me, I've just done this for so long. It's a bit of an art and a bit of a skill. Yeah. So for me, I'm just good at listening to my clients and being able to break it down from there. So the first thing I always have anyone do is create awareness. I'm a big proponent that awareness precedes change. So no matter what, like if someone's listening to this and they just want to get started, just track your intake. Use a MyFitnessPal, go get a food scale, track your intake, create awareness of what you're eating. Just by doing that, the research has proven that you will start to make better food choices when you have to log it. Like if I eat 2 Krispy Kreme donuts every day and it's just kind of part of my lifestyle, I'm not even aware of it. Not saying Krispy Kremes are good or bad, but now I have to log it every day and I see, holy smokes, before I even walk out of the door, I consume 60 grams of sugar, no fiber, no protein. It creates awareness, and then I'm more likely to make a change. So that's step number one. I do use a pretty good standard for protein for an active individual at a normal body weight. I use 1.2 to 2.0 gram per kilogram. And that's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the Academy of American College of Sports Medicine recommendations. Besides that, carbs and fats, it's variable from client to client based on their wants, needs, goals, anthropometrics, their body fat percentage, all that. So to give like a one-size-fits-all answer, I can't do because it doesn't exist.
What do you think about some of their? I don't know them, and to be honest, people have told me that they use them. I haven't looked into it. I probably should. Apparently there's apps out there that will help you count your macros.
Totally. So like calculate your macros.
Yeah. What do you think about those?
I'm never gonna like knock someone's attempt to get started, and I'm never going to dissuade someone from trying to do something that can help them. But the problem with those calorie calculators, macro calculators is they're not assessing you as a dynamic human being.
Yeah.
Like a computer is going to assess at most your age, height, weight, body fat percentage, and maybe your activity level. I mean, so much more goes into human metabolism like that. Like, what about your last year of metabolic health? Like, were you dieting? Were you losing weight? Were you gaining weight? Were your stress levels all jacked up? Like, what about that? How's your stress levels today? How's your sleep? How's your energy? What's your training style modality? What do you like? Like, what's your personal preferences? A calorie calculator can't do that. And more times than not, so again, take a woman maybe who's been yo-yo dieting for the last 5 years. She's eating 1,200 calories per day, not losing weight. And she was working out 6 days per week. And this calorie calculator shoots at her 2,400 calories just based on her age, height, and weight. Well, if she goes out and does that, first off, she's going to be scared shitless to do that. Sorry, can I swear on this?
Not in some,
No.
some countries.
Okay.
Don't like it, but
Yeah.
whatever.
All right, that was the one and only. All right, glad I asked.
Look, it was a medical term. It was a medical term.
It was a medical term. Right. That's absolutely correct. But so she's going to be scared out of her mind to consume that. And let's say if she's brave enough just to take that advice, wrongfully so, she's going to gain a ton of body fat because it's just not customized. So, in today's world, it's your health. It's your metabolism. Your metabolism is literally billions and billions of chemical reactions daily. A nutrition calculator that some computer programmer designed and put on a website cannot accurately assess and create a nutrition protocol for you. You need to work with a registered dietitian or a very qualified coach to do so.
Yeah. And then, okay, last question, just because I know our listeners want to know, and I feel like we talk about this a lot. Does calories in, calories out matter more than your macronutrient distribution? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a great question. So, there's so much talk about quality versus quantity. And I mean, look, it's basic laws of thermodynamics and metabolism that, yes, in order to lose weight, build muscle, gain weight, it comes down to the first step is calories in, calories out. Like if you are eating super healthy foods, but you're eating 5,000 calories per day, and you need to be expending whatever, 2,500 to lose weight, well, it's not going to happen. I don't care how healthy they are. I don't care if they're paleo or keto approved. Doesn't matter. If you eat too many overall calories, you won't achieve your goals if it's fat loss. Now, if that's step one, then 1A is nutritional quality and macronutrient distribution. So just because you're eating in a calorie deficit, if you're eating all sugar all day, not getting any fiber, not getting any protein, yeah, you'll lose weight, but you won't feel good. Your blood chemistry will not be aligned with your goals. Your energy won't be good. It's like the Twinkie study. I forget where this guy was from, but he was a nutrition professor who just wanted to prove a point that he could eat Ho-Hos and Hostess donuts and Twinkies all day and lose weight by being in a calorie deficit, which he did. But of course, he wasn't feeling good. I'm pretty sure he had some negative implications on his blood chemistry. So yes, number one is calories in versus calories out, but then closely behind is macronutrient distribution, protein, fiber, and then nutrient quality as well. Because I've never had a client say to me, "Hey Tony, I just want to look great. I don't care how I feel. I just want to look good." No, everyone wants to look good and feel great as well. So that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question about exercise during reverse dieting. So I know, of course, that's going to depend on the goal of the client. But are there some ideas that you might recommend, for instance, for a physique athlete, if they've been focusing on a certain type of weightlifting, that maybe shift to cardio while they're adding more calories? Or maybe it's a time to now ramp up the either heavier weights if they want to gain mass. What do you like, or what would you recommend, or what would you recommend for certain situations that clients may wish for?
Yeah, absolutely. So for most people, when they're coming into a reverse diet, they were doing a lower calorie diet before, and they're usually doing an excessive amount of training and namely cardio. When you think of fat loss, people do cardio to lose weight, right? And they neglect the weight training. So for more instances than not, we're trying to create a positive energy balance. So we're trying to get them to consume more food and slowly work out of a calorie deficit. So usually, actually, I decrease cardio. I mean, we always want to promote strength training because strength training has so many benefits. Bone density in women, lean muscle tissue, all that good stuff. So in the initial phase of a reverse diet, we actually start to slowly pull back on cardio and slowly increase nutrition. Now, if you have someone who's been in it for a while, they're in a very good positive fed state, then yeah, definitely you can increase. What they notice is the athletes, and I see this with CrossFit athletes, physique athletes, doesn't matter. They start to set PRs in the gym. They start to get stronger. They can add in another training session because they're feeling so good. They need less off days. So yes, that's the positive implications down the line. But initially out, you want to slowly work back cardio and slowly increase nutrition.
So right before, well, either during the reverse diet phase or right before it, are there risks of certain injuries? We know that if you're at a caloric deficit, Ryan and I have seen this with athletes in the UFC. When they've cut significant amount of weight, they're susceptible to injuries, whether it's breaking bones or anything along those lines. Have you noticed certain? Now that's extreme, and only a fraction of the percentage of the population will ever go through that. But have you seen injuries that people might be susceptible to while they're in a serious cut phase, or maybe even while they're starting to bring the calories back up? Maybe they're getting more energy, so they're thinking, all right, well, now I can go from nothing to doing very heavy deadlifts, clean and press, all these complicated lifts coming from nothing, and maybe that could cause an injury. Have you seen anything of that nature?
Not so much like in the reverse phase, but definitely in a calorie deficit. I mean, it's kind of like I mentioned earlier. One of the biggest things that happens is your cortisol levels start to, come up, and cortisol is that acute stress hormone, and usually that comes along with it is inflammation. So when you're in that heightened, stressed out state, you're definitely more susceptible to injury in the gym. You're more susceptible to decreased recovery. So again, negative implications with that. You're more susceptible to illness because your immune system is weakened. So absolutely, there are those kind of health implications that come from being, especially in a calorie deficit at a very low body fat percentage. So definitely, those are things you have to be aware of. Like when you're in those last phases of, contest prep, going back to that, and you're at the low levels of body fat, like you're not setting PRs in the gym. You are not, having the best lifts of your life. Like, I mean, even when I was a few weeks out of my last one, trying to get a pump in the gym is very hard to do. You're, like I said, your body at this point is just completely fighting back. So there are those things, and that's how you just have to know how to train smart. You have to have good guidance, a good coach to know how to make it as safe as possible during that time.
So in a way, the reverse dieting actually can help mitigate against injury.
Well, yeah, because after time, especially again, going back to someone who's at a very low esoteric level of body fat, by adding some body fat back to your frame to get you a healthy physiological level, yeah, you start to reverse all those negative things. The hormones start to bounce back up, start to feel like yourself again. Your recovery comes back up, your immune health, all those things. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What would you say to the person who just does competition after competition after competition?
I think there's some merit to it. Like if you're in a really good spot, I mean, I know several people who have done show after show, if they're trying to get at the national level, all that good stuff. But no matter what, you need to have a phase of recovery period. Right. So if you spend 6 months out of the year, doing a contest prep, even if we look at every year and you're only allowing 6 months for improvement, that's not a lot of time for a natural athlete. I can only speak for natural athletes. That's not a lot of time for, recovery and improvement for a natural athlete. So yeah, when you're in a calorie deficit, you're not building muscle. So if your goal is to get better, get stronger, build more muscle, well, you need to spend a significant amount of time in a positively fed state to where you can make those types of improvements. So yeah, it just all depends on your goals at that time.
So Tony, not all of our listeners are native English speakers, and so they might be confused by the term natural. Can you sort of explain what that is?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So to me, just natural athlete means they do not use any type of exogenous hormones. So any type of steroids or anything that is, I guess, not beyond supplementation. So hormones, steroids, things like that.
So one question, because we talked about the phase of reverse dieting and how important that is. Is there an end to that phase? Do you look at someone and say, okay, now we're going to sort of put you on your sort of quote unquote normal
or maintenance
phase? Like, when does that come in? And I guess that would be based on the goals of the client, correct?
Yeah, it's always based on the goals of the client, but absolutely, your goal is to get them to a sustainable point. So if you get them to a point to where they're eating a comfortable level of nutrition, they're feeling good with their aesthetics, they're feeling good with their results, and their performance is great in the gym. And then at that time, they can either, diet again if they want to lose more body fat, or just sustain it. Like, that's always my goal for a client is, now if we're shifting to general population, take someone down, help them lose weight by calorie deficit, get them to a point to where they're comfortable with their body fat percentage or aesthetic changes, slowly build those calories back up to a healthy maintenance, and then boom, they're good to go. Because no matter what, like if Mrs. Jones, my client, if we had to take her down to 1,400 calories and she lost the 15 pounds she wanted to lose, I mean, it's going to be very hard to maintain 1,500 calories for the rest of her life. Holiday parties, travel, girls' night out. But how much easier would it be to maintain her new level of body fat, her new aesthetic appearance at 2,100 calories? Well, of course, right? That's so much better internally for her to be in. So that's always the goal, to get them to a healthy level of maintenance and then let them go fly on their own.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to mention, I feel like we didn't talk about the point of reverse dieting is to get their calories up, but to keep them at the body fat that they want. Although we don't want to keep a competitor at like 5%.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Healthy.
So I know you said that the research isn't as extensive for kind of general populations, but I guess this got me thinking. With athletes, you deal with like periodization, where you kind of set up a you structure a training program in phases. You're geared towards a certain kind of training outcome, but you're kind of going back. Or you're kind of going back in a circle in your phases to kind of, year to year, month to month, really increase the results and production of the athlete. Is that almost like an idea you can use with the client for reverse dieting? So maybe let's say you have somebody who has a really huge number, and you want to get them down to, let's say they're eating 4,000 calories a day, and you want to get them down to 2,000. That you almost do a structure where you bring them down, bring them up, then bring them down a little bit more, then bring them back up a little bit, almost in a man like a roller coaster, down, trending downwards to get them there, so that you go almost in multiple phases of dieting and reverse dieting. Or is that not something that would be advisable at this point?
No, you're absolutely correct with that. And that was a great parallel that you drew from like periodization with training. And it's very similar. So like I work with a good deal of like CrossFit athletes. So when they are in their like off season, that's when they'll go, like when they're not training for the games or training for the open, which is very, demanding on their bodies. They need their nutrition at a high level. That's when they can, go attack their aesthetic goals. So we might take them, I might take a female CrossFit athlete from, let's say, 3,000 calories per day, slowly diet her down, slowly take down that her caloric total, get her in a calorie deficit, help her lose some body fat, help her achieve an aesthetic goal. And then, 4 months out from in season, which is like the CrossFit Open and all that good stuff, start building up those calories back up so she can maintain that new level of aesthetics, but now also have the positive implications on her performance by having, higher carbs, more fat, overall more calories. So yeah, absolutely. It's always, I always say your nutrition program should reflect your training outcomes and your training goals. So absolutely, there are phases to it.
So going off of that, and I know we don't advocate for people to not exercise, but say the everyday average person wanted to do like a cut and a reverse diet and they're not exercising, like, is there any benefit to that?
It makes it much more difficult because no matter what, I get to the gym, get 10,000 steps per day, at least that. So when you just live a sedentary lifestyle, all this becomes much more difficult. So, I mean, yeah, I would say in theory that if someone just like was completely sedentary and, lost weight, then yeah, I think you could still reverse diet. But I think there's just so much proven benefit that we know, it's clear to strength training and just general activity that like it can only help. So I'm always advocating that my clients, no matter what, they get active.
So I was just showing Ryan a picture of Phil Heath, who has had a lot of recent success in bodybuilding. Just sort of a little off topic. What do you think of? And there's certainly ain't none of them, competing in Mr. Olympia natural by any means. Like, what do you think about the modern day bodybuilders that it's so focused on size as compared to, say, bodybuilders from the 1970s or 80s that had a different sort of aesthetic? They were going for different aesthetic quality and not just being these enormous creatures.
Yeah, even though I've competed, I'm not too into the current bodybuilding realm. But I can completely agree. Obviously every kid growing up, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, those type, like Frank Zane. So it's definitely shifted, and it's shifted more from, like you said, that beach body, that healthy, strong physique look to just something that is unnatural. So that's why I've kind of always stuck into the men's physique realm, which is more about a healthy beach body look, versus the holy smokes, this is a freak of nature coming at me look. But I'm not knocking it either way. I respect whatever anyone wants to do, and whatever they enjoy. So it's all about personal preference, man. It's whatever look you feel most fulfilled going after. That's what you should do.
Do you have anything that you want to add, Tony?
Yeah, where can we, what do you, social media, website, what's the best way for people to find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So, first thing, I just like to say thank you guys so much for having me on, and I love the platform that you guys have, and just am very appreciative for you to let me add value to your users and your listeners. But yeah, if anyone ever wants to connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Tony Stephan, Tony_Stephan. Same thing on Facebook, Tony Stephan Dietitian, and then my website is TonyStephanDietitian.com.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, this is a great chat, and love to have you back on anytime. Any subject, would be more than happy to have you back on.
Awesome. I truly appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
So I've decided to go on a reverse diet.
Justin.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your reverse diet?
Yeah. What's your reverse diet?
We're playing into it. What's your reverse diet, Justin?
Actually, I haven't thought about that. I just know I want to go on a reverse diet.
You need a coach. You don't just go on a reverse diet.
Actually, I also had a misconception of what reverse dieting was. First off, I never heard of the term until today. Secondly,
until I asked you guys a month ago, could my coach come on and talk about reverse dieting?
I did hear about it that time.
My excuse is I was on a cruise with people bombarding me while I was trying to get food, and I lost.
You were on a reverse diet.
yeah. It was the order 3 entrees and 8 appetizer kind of diet. So
the uncontrolled, aka not a reverse diet.
The compulsive eating diet, where the first day I ate so much that I was full the rest of the time, but I wouldn't skip a meal because it was I can't skip lunch. It was I was completely full. I didn't need lunch. It was but I can't skip lunch. I have to.
You're referring to your cruise.
Yeah.
You've talked about.
Yeah, we talked about it in another episode. I don't know when it's gonna get released because I don't know when any of this stuff gets released. I just do it randomly.
We've been recording. It's 4:20. We've been recording since 12:30.
Yeah, this is our 8th episode in a row. So. We're a little delirious. We got one more left, so you're just gonna get what you get. But yeah,
actually a really cool discussion now.
Yeah, no. We kept it together for that, but I think we're losing it. So before we lose it even further, and so we can keep our energy for the next episode we have to record in
2 more
10 minutes
to record.
Oh, crap. All right. Okay, yeah, we got 2 more episodes. So in order to give you the best gymwits we can.
Why are we recording so many episodes?
Because I'm going away.
Where are you going?
Tell us.
Don't worry about it.
Ryan.
You can say.
I'm gonna be gone. I'll be traveling for a few weeks with if I forget if I don't even remember if I mentioned it or not, but with a fairly well-known artist. So I'll be traveling with the True.
You said you were able to tell.
I guess, yeah. I was feeling weird about it.
You'll have to listen to the next episode. Oh, you're already going to be on tour. You might even be back by the time.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, honestly, I might be back by the time this goes out. Who knows? Yeah, you'll just have to listen, and figure it out, or you can make some guesses. It starts in Atlanta. That's your guess. Nice. In some point in September. There's your guess. If I haven't mentioned it at some point in an episode,
might get released.
You'll be training someone, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Training somebody, and somebody who I've actually very much admired admire. So very cool. It'd be very
this
cool.
This is fun, actually.
Experience.
Send us your guesses.
Yeah, send us your guesses.
So that means we have to release this episode soon.
No, we maybe.
You can't
we'll
send
see.
the guesses after you've already been back.
Fair enough.
True.
I guess. All right, fine. So anyway, well, if I give a massive hint, like anybody should get this, but not anybody, but all right, we'll just leave it at that. Anyway,
What was
check.
the hint?
I gave the hint. I'm not going to
Started
give it
in
again.
Atlanta, and it's
Started
someone
in
who's
Atlanta.
trained.
Yeah, it's a massive hint.
Gotcha.
Almost anybody will
I get it. I get
Yeah.
it.
All right. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
And I'm Tony Marinucci, aka Tips with Tony, a registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.
And we are
The Gymwits.